Hey, Granny Gear here for Old Guy on a Bike. Welcome to another Tech Tuesday video. Before I go too far, what do you think about my Max Biggie glasses, huh? They're pink, they're big, they're bold. You know, that's the way I live my life, big and bold. These are the Tifosi Sanctum XLs. Yep, it's a big sunglass statement for sure. But that is not what this video is all about. No, we are talking about bicycle bearings, passionate, inventive people, and a company that's making stuff that, well, you might want to put into your bicycle. Well, if you've been in bicycles long enough, especially mountain bikes, you probably will have heard of Enduro Bearing. It might even be running in your bicycle right now. And the reason I say that is back in the day when mountain bike suspension was coming along and you were having all these linkages and whatnot, well, some of them might have been little bushings and not bearings to facilitate the rocker arms and different pivots. Well, bushings wear out quickly and they tend to be kind of sticky, and that affects your suspension movement, so they went to bearings. Well, the problem with the bearings they were using is they really weren't designed for the kind of loads that a bicycle pivot sees. And so along comes Enduro Bearing, and Enduro Bearing now is seen in lots and lots of original equipment installations on high-end bicycles, suspension bicycles, for their pivot linkages. And they've gone much more than just pivot bearings. For instance, there's this lovely little bottom bracket I'm holding, headsets, derailleur pulleys, etc., tools, grease for your bearings. They've really got a pretty good expanded line, including the XD15 ceramic line, which is most likely the last bearing you will ever have to buy. And over the last couple of years, I've gotten to know a couple of the representatives of the company. I've ridden bikes with them, I've hung out with them, drank wine with them, sat around and just listened to them talk about, well, these little greasy spitting things like we have all over our bicycles. And I've come to know them as a company, and recently I got to take a tour and see their, well, it's a magnificent, huge, expansive, well, no, actually, it really isn't. It's just a small group of people in a kind of funky environment. Oh, they got warehouses, but it's a small group of people that are just doing the hard work of trying to make the very best product they can so your cycling experience is better. It reminds me of these uniquely American companies, kind of like a Chris King or something like that, right? You kind of get the idea. That's Enduro Bearing. And so in this video, I'm going to show you a little quick tour of their warehouse. It's a funky place, but it's also rather stunning in its bearingness. I sit down with Matt, one of the co-owners of Enduro Bearing, talk about the Max Hit line, which is what this represents. I have installed a couple of these, a headset and bottom bracket, in a frame I'm building up, so that's going to be happening. And then at the end of it, I'm going to reflect a little bit my thoughts on how can somebody be passionate about a bearing, and why does that matter? All right, let's get to it. So the corporate office is up in Oakland, California. It's in an old industrial area, and what's kind of unique about it is part of their warehousing is the original 7-Up bottling building, or I guess for lack of a better word. But that property there was the original 7-Up for, like, I think for the whole West Coast, where they would bottle it. And if you look around, like for instance, this funky old clock that's still, the hands are still sweeping on the wall. And look at this old funky electrical panel, right? With all the hand-drawn, you know, what the circuit, what the switch does, what it controls and all that. Little, I mean, now we have, you know, nicely engraved labels. Back then, they had somebody with really neat handwriting and a pen. And look at you'll see 7-Up green in places like that. You know, well, yeah, that's 7-Up green. So that's pretty cool. First of all, just that they're there and that they actually appreciate the fact that they have some history in the old building that they're in. But it goes beyond that. When you walk in the entrance, you notice up on the, hanging up on near the ceiling is a stunning collection of vintage and antique, I guess you should say, Bianchi bikes of all different kinds, because Matt, one of the co-owners, used to work at Bianchi, and he's made it, I guess, another little passionate thing he does is to collect some really cool old Bianchis. Because in the end, these guys, they're bike guys too. They're not just parts vendors. Now we all sat down in a room and of course had a nice presentation by Matt and Rick from Enduro Bearing. And there was a mixture of us. There were some YouTubers and some web content creators and some distributors that are in the room, just hearing what Enduro Bearing has to say. And you know, when you listen to them talk, they make some compelling arguments about what they make is better than the average bearing, shall we say. And then we went out into the warehouse, and my goodness, you can see from the video here, look at just the big shelves, like a Costco type big tall shelves full of bearings. Now, not all of these are bicycle bearings. For instance, half of the Enduro Bearing company is also industrial bearings. A lot of that, I understand the company started making parts and things for heavy-duty forklifts that tend to wear out all their little rolling and engaging parts very quickly. In fact, take a look at these look like black rubber wheels that Matt's handling. Those are made of steel with a black oxide coating so it won't rust. So if you're working on a dock somewhere near the ocean, which would be typical use for a big forklift, it's not going to corrode. But these are called wheels, even though they're steel. They wear these out. Can you imagine wearing out that steel wheel? Wow. And then this is a chain. This is not a new SRAM chain with a power link. No, it isn't. This is like a roller chain for a heavy-duty forklift. I was sitting on a pallet. Cannot imagine how much that weighs. And look at this bearing. Look how big this is. He wasn't even sure what this came from. Some kind of big industrial pump or something, but that is a bearing. And then there's old bearings. Look at these shelves of old vintage bearings that they don't make anymore. The companies are out of business, but they have them cataloged, and every once in a while someone will call up and say, do you have a bearing for a 1922 Rolls Royce or fan belt or whatever? And they go, no, let me look it up. Yeah, I do. I got 2 of them. Who knew? Yep. I mean, I've gone on lots of company tours before, but I have to say, between the old bikes and the funky bearings and just the whole vibe of the place, I enjoyed that more than any other tour. And they have up-to-date stuff too, mixed in between something like an old lathe that is somebody's favorite machine to work with. We have laser engravers, and we have testing machines that measure, you can put a bearing on it and torture test it, something that they make to facilitate, testing their components and make sure everything's up and up. So yeah, it was a great tour. Now, one of the products they have, something I wanted to use more of, because I think it represents a really good middle ground between value and longevity and toughness. And that is the Max Hit series. Now, Max Hit, this is a Max Hit bottom bracket. This is a stainless steel one. And it's guaranteed for life now. And it is a significantly beautiful piece of machining. I'm going to let Matt talk about why Max Hit is a smart choice for a lot of us who push our bikes hard. We don't want to spend tons of money on something like their XD15 ceramics because, yeah, admittedly, that's very expensive. Well, but you don't want to put something cheap that's going to fail on you in a year or so if you use your products hard and take it into difficult places. You don't want it to go snap, crackle, pop, crunch when you're in the middle of nowhere. So let's let Matt talk about Max Hit, and when we're done with that, well, I'm going to sum up my thoughts on, well, Enduro Bearing as a company and the people that are running it. So Matt, what I've seen happen when I've been watching videos of guys and gals that are out there doing some like ultra endurance stuff, they're bike packing, they're on the Silk Road race or onto something, and all of a sudden a major part of the bike, like a bottom bracket or even a derailleur pulley or something like that, that kind of comes apart, a headset seizes up on them. And of course your XD15, the super ceramic stuff that's just like indestructible, is a great answer to that, but that might be a little big of a financial hit for some people where they're looking for that nice, strong, reliable, rebuildable middle ground. And it seems to me that Max Hit is quite likely that product. I'm just curious what you think about that.
Yeah, well, number one, it's a good question, and it's a good, because you don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere in any event, whether it be a long ride or a race or bike packing, and then have your bottom bracket come apart. I mean, you want to be confident with that stuff.
Right.
I know
right.
I do. And so, yeah, you're right. XD15, it's a material story. It's a super material, really robust bearing solution. However, we do have that's a material story, and we have another story, which is a design story called Max Hit. And Max Hit is a case where we did a new take on the bottom bracket makeup of an aluminum cup and a bearing pressed into it. And because we're a bearing company, we made the aluminum cup into a steel bearing. So essentially, what we have now, instead of an aluminum cup with a bearing pressed in, this outer part is the bearing. It's a threaded bearing, if you will. And because of that design take, it's got much larger balls in here that can take much more load and last longer and not break down over a long ride or inclement weather. This thing's stainless steel, or spilling drinks on them or anything like that that will deteriorate bearings. This thing is very resistant to all those things that take out your bottom bracket bearing. Let's look at it on this one, because that was a BSA version, and here's a T47 solution. So on this side, the blue one, you see the bearing pressed into an aluminum cup. And this is pretty standard design from everybody out there. What Enduro Bearings has now is this solution where this outer piece is stainless steel, and this is the bearing race. And so what you see there, you see another seal there, but behind this seal are 5mm balls instead of 4mm balls in this case. And in a lot of cases, like a lot of major brands, they use 2.5mm balls. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, the diameter, 2.5 to 5mm. So we're doubling the diameter, but it's 7 times the mass. And that's what counts. And that's what changes the longevity factor by about a factor of 10, if I'm going off the top of my head in testing. What does that increased mass do for us?
When you say increased mass, talking about the bigger ball bearing.
The bigger ball bearing. So going from a 2.5mm ball to a 5mm
That's
ball.
twice the diameter.
Twice the diameter, but 7 times the mass. So that mass is like a much bigger mountain bike wheel rolling over, going from a 26-inch to a 29-inch mountain bike wheel rolling over rocks, because you're going to roll over dirt in here. And a lot of the bearings, the balls are so small, the dirt is almost the same size as a ball practically that gets in there. So if you think of that skate wheel, when you're, skateboard wheel going down a road and you hit a rock and it locks up and stops you, if you had a bigger wheel, it'd roll over it just like a 29er wheel. So that's what this does. The 5mm ball with the much larger mass rolls over that dirt easier. What else does that do? When you put your crank through on a frame that maybe isn't totally straight, those balls and the bearings will align better and spin better. They account for misalignment much better than small balls, which if things aren't straight, the small balls will tend to pinch and lock up and not spin as well. If they're locking up or skidding, then they're wearing out. So these things keep rolling. Again, it's another part of the story. Whoops, I had that upside down.
That's okay. But I mean, that's what you want, right? We're looking for, like, not ultimate free spinning performance on a work stand, but we're looking for something that's just going to go and go and go and go and keep doing it efficiently.
Exactly. And you want it to be spinning, day 500 as well as it was day 1. And that's what these things do. They actually break in, they'll feel better. The other part about what we do is filling the bearings with grease, which the grease gets out to the seals. If you have a dry seal, there's not enough grease in the bearings. That's where most of your friction comes from. When you have a greased lube seal, it's 20 times less friction than a dry seal.
And not everybody fills their bearings like you guys do.
No, and we fill them both sides with grease. It's a little detail, but it's really all about the details. And that's an important one, because if there's not enough grease, things aren't getting lubricated properly.
Now, your seals are unique in the industry.
That's right. We use, so you have 2 parts of the seal. The part that snaps in on the top that is just set, and then you have the dynamic side, which this inner race is spinning against this. We machine a groove into this inner race that interfaces with a dual lip seal. So we have 2 lips. One lip keeps the grease in, essentially, and the other lip is a dust seal to keep the dirt out. And what happens in between, the grease fills inside the channel, lubricating the seal so it has less friction, and that also helps seal the unit, keeping the moisture out.
So now for an everyday user kind of person, they can easily rebuild this, clean the bearings. Yep. You're providing now replacement seals with them, which is nice in case you tweak a seal.
Yeah.
You get new seals.
Yeah. Sometimes when you pry them out, you're not careful.
Yeah.
Or, I try to be myself, but sometimes you bend one.
That's right.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
And they're hard to get, if not impossible.
I'll bet. So you've extended your warranty on this product line. Is that?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. These have a lifetime warranty, and you do need to service them. You do need to, do that. You got to put grease in it, just like you keep oil in your engine in your car. You got to keep some grease in here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, probably.
And you guys have your own grease.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is
we
nice,
recommend.
Right?
Yeah, we recommend our grease.
Yeah.
Although you can use any high-end bicycle grease. For this, we use our speed grease, and it works really well with stainless. It's fast. It resists water washout. Checks all the boxes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's max hit, which is maybe that perfect intermediate spot where you want something of super high quality. It's rebuildable. It's got a great warranty. It's going to be tough and durable and serviceable, but you don't want to spend a fortune for it. If you're tired of your lesser bottom brackets and headsets and those rotating parts you need to keep rotating. If you've been wearing those out regularly and you're not sure if you can count on them, well, I want you to check out the Enduro Bearing Max Hit series, because that could be just exactly what you're looking for. I had a long drive back from Sea Otter. Man, I was one tired granny gear. That was a great week, kind of a long week. And to make the time go by, I was listening to some podcasts, and one of the podcasts was talking about small-scale genius, if you will. I don't mean the kind of genius that solves a horrible disease or puts someone on the moon, but just that small genius that exists. I think maybe not uniquely American, but it's kind of an American thing. That way of looking at something like a bearing and just go, well, how about if we did this? Would that make it better? And then they try it, and they invest their time, and they invest their resources and their money, and in the end, the mousetrap improves. And it doesn't seem like genius, does it, to make this max hit bearing where the outside cup threads in your frame? Well, the cup and the part that threads in are one and the same. It's not a cup inside. The threaded part is the bearing, outer bearing race. And because of that, the ball bearings are bigger. And because of that, it lasts longer. And because of that, it'll spin better for longer. And the seal that has a lip both on the inside and the outside, not just to keep the dirt and water out, but keep the grease in. I don't think anybody else does that. And that's the result of genius. Genius applied to spinning metal, greasy bearings, without which our bicycles in the whole world would come to a grinding halt. All right, that's it for this Tech Tuesday. Check out Enduro Bearing. You know what? Obviously, they flew me up there and gave me a tuna and bacon sandwich and put me up for the night, and all that was comped, and I appreciated that. But honestly, I really do appreciate what they do, and I really do appreciate their passion behind a simple thing like a bearing. And I think you'd be very surprised to be unhappy with one of the Enduro Bearing products. I encourage you to look up on the website, check them out, see if your bike shop can put some of this stuff in your bicycle the next time you're working on it. I think you'll be glad you did. All right, you guys have a great weekend or weekend. And as always, you go ride your bikes.